and welcome everyone to the Qmed Book Club, Qmed Academy Book Club Part 2. It's good to see you all back here again, and we are broadcasting live on YouTube, and it's really nice to be back. I've really been looking forward to continue the reading together with you and this second part of the book club. So just to reset the stage, the reason why we do this review or have initiated the book club is to review the different guidelines, especially the MDCG guidelines that have been published, and it comes out of the new regulation for the medical devices, the MDR, Medical Device Regulation, that should have been enforced here on May 26, 2020. So it has now been postponed with a year, but still the guidelines are coming out, and the Medical Device Coordination Group, the so-called MDCG, have published and are planning to publish several guidelines to support both the understanding and translation of the regulation on specific topics. And this is for me, it's my job, and it's also my interest to read and understand these guidelines, and I have to both understand them and also translate into normal language and implement the framework for both our daily work here at Qmed Consulting and also for our clients during their medical device development. And why do this alone? It can be quite some heavy text, and therefore I invited you all to join this book club and read the documents together with me, and then we will kind of go through the main points and comment and answer questions. And that's basically what the idea behind the book club was. The book club is not because I don't think that you can read or understand. It's basically just because it's much nicer to do this together with somebody, and also to get some reflections on some of the items and get your understanding cleared that I have it right. So I thought it would be good fun, and I'm really happy that you joined me all. So I actually planned to do this with a good friend and colleague of mine, Merete Hansen. We did part 1 together. She left me for this part on a well-deserved vacation, but she is back again next week, where we will do the part 3. So it's the plan is to do it together, have a good dialogue and share that with you, and then remember that together is better basically, and gives a better understanding. Remember, you can ask questions along the way here live on YouTube. My dear colleague Marga, she will help me arrange answering the questions that are coming in. She will also share with you important links to the documents and other important topics that we will share along the way. So if you tomorrow or the day after all of a sudden have to find back to the specific document, you remember something, you can always go back to the recordings on YouTube and then find the link basically to the document. Questions, you can also raise questions before or after the sessions on Qmed Academy at qmedconsulting.com. We will try and answer these during the sessions, the recordings, the live sessions, but also if there are more detailed questions, we will follow up following the recordings. But we will try and answer as much as possible the questions along the way. If you missed part 1, you can always go back and see that previous session, and we will do that with all the planned 6 versions. You can find them here on YouTube, where we'll keep them all if you want to go back, or if you want to share it with some of your colleagues and friends. We will also try and share materials and links on the Qmed Academy Book Club group on LinkedIn, where we are trying to create a group where we can share the different topics and questions and make sure that we all benefit from that. And we also have other great initiatives coming up, so stay tuned, and if you're interested, come and join us. So we are starting out with the topic for today, and before I really go into the exact guideline, I want to maybe make you aware about what MDCG actually is, just to mention it briefly, because some of you might not know what that stands for. And the Medical Device Coordination Group, as I mentioned it, MDCG, is actually an expert committee that are composed of persons that are designated by the individual member states in the European Union based on their role and expertise. And it's put into the exact, into the MDR, its law text that this group was established. There is, as I say, one person designated from each country, and then there are also a second person to support in case that the other person cannot attend. The whole idea about the MDCD group is that they should provide advices back to the Commission and also assist the Commission and the Member States in ensuring the harmonization between the different regulations and guidelines, and make sure that there is a clear text, understanding, support to the manufacturer on how actually to develop medical devices and put them on the market. The MDCGs should support both medical devices but also IVDR, or not IVDR but IVD products. So, and it's divided into subgroups that then are focused on different topics. And the MDCG actually, they're working very hard to provide different guidelines to us. And Vaka will post on your chat all the different guidelines that have been posted or published so far. There are some quite old ones from 2017, and as you can see, the concentration of publications in 2020 is actually increasing. The topics are generally within the UDI, so Unique Device Identification Codes, the processes around that. The UDAMED, the new database, central database in Europe that are going to control more or less everything. Not everything, but a lot of you want to centralize a lot of the processes. And then about European device nomenclature, which is going to be established here with the MDR. Guidelines for the notified body. Clinical investigation and evaluation is a whole section on its own, and there I'm very interested in these guidelines, and very valuable guidelines have been published just here shortly about PMCF, for instance, and also safety reporting under the new regulation. And then there is one topic about new technologies and other topics. And on the other topics, we actually have the MDCG2020-2 that we are going to talk about today. So it's very important to understand, like this for any guideline, that it's not a document that comes out of the European Commission, even though that the people are designated from the member states, which are also part of the Commission, but it is not to be considered as kind of an official position from the European Commission, but support from more the competent authorities side around the law text. And any views that are expressed in these documents are not legally binding, and by the Court of Justice of the European Union, who can give a legal or binding interpretation of the union law. So as always, the law is the basic, the guidelines are there to support. There can be a small difference, and you just have to be aware about that. And remember, again, a small note, if you say you follow a guideline, you have to follow the guideline basically, and don't just reference it, but remember to really understand the guideline and how it provides input to your process. So what is really interesting is also the guidelines that are to come this year and also next year. And you can see there is, by using the link that Varka will publish here shortly, there is a lot of very interesting guidelines coming out. I'm especially looking forward to the artificial intelligence guideline, which is a completely new area within the medical device space, which a lot of companies are looking into, and there are no real good guidance around this topic. And you also have available, if you look into, for instance, the meetings that the MDCG group is having, you are also able to see that using the link that Varka is uploading, and there you can actually see when the different groups, subgroups are meeting to discuss the specific topics. So Varka, are there any questions? No, not right now. Then let's continue to the actually guideline that we wanted to go through today in this section of the book club. So we're going to go through the MDCG2020-2, which is for Class 1 transitional provisions under the Article 120, Section 3 and 4 under the MDR 2017/745. And it's quite a short guideline. I actually got a little bit concerned when I started reading this because I was a little concerned how to bring information to the table here during this session, and that's also why, because it's short, and also because there have been some changes since then in the date of application. We have had the postponement of the date of application to next year, and this guideline was actually to help the manufacturer of Class 1 products that were upgraded under the MDR, to help them with a softer transition period. So there is now not that urgency, but of course it's still valid, and I know that there have also been corrections in the new MDR, in the amendment to the MDR, where the date of application is postponed, that the clarification of the Article 120 in regards to this guideline has been clarified. But to be able to bring as much value as possible also to this session, I wanted to give also a short update on the situation about the notified bodies, which I know that everyone is really interested in, and that we gives us sometimes grey hair, because the situation is as it is, but it's also a little critical. Qmed has clients that are really struggling in regards to the communication with the notified bodies, simply because the COVID-19 and the workload is so high. So I wanted to give a short update on that. So the amendment, or the amendment to the MDR for Article 120 Section 3 and 4 actually splits the Class 1 medical devices into two groups. So one group where the Article 120 then kind of replaces the MDR, and then the rest of the devices that are still covered by the MDR and have to meet the full MDR requirement by the date of applications, which at that time, when the MDCG 2020-2 was published, is now postponed until next year, 2021. So the devices that are kind of reflected, or how do you say that, were influenced by the amendment are that, it's, as I say, all the devices that are up-classified under the MDR, and this is mainly software according to the Rule 11, and then devices containing nanomaterial, which are covered by the Rule 19, inhalers, which are covered by Rule 20, and substance-based devices, which are Rule 21, and then reusable surgical instrument. These devices are subject to now a transitional period, and that based on if they are able to provide a valid declaration of conformity before the date of the May 26, 2020, which now again has been postponed, delayed by 1 year. So what they can do is actually they can be placed on the market under the new declaration of conformity until 2024. So with the postponement of the date of application, then these manufacturer has 1 more year to provide the necessary material, and the transition period has now been shortened with 1 year, so the end date is still May 26, 2024. And all this is actually depending on that there are no significant changes made to the device. And I will discuss that a little later, or mention it, what that actually means. It also means that these products can be sold on the European market until May 27, 2025. So you have the products that has been produced and has a valid MDR certificate under a notified body that are issued then by the end of the transition period by May 26, 2024, then they can keep on selling the product on the market an extra year. So this amendment to the regulation gives this soft transition period for these upgraded Class 1 MDD devices, which will experience a quite steep increase in the requirement in the technical documentation and the requirements. But they have to remember still, and that's really important, that part of the regulation is still applicable. So the post-market surveillance, market surveillance, vigilance, registration of the economic operators and devices still apply, also under the corresponding requirements in these directives. And this also includes the requirement, or not say that, the extra year now can be used to collect data under a PMCF program, also for the Class 1 devices that will support your PMS data the next year, May 21. So in regards to the use of working with a device where you are not able to make significant changes to this device over this soft transition period, is actually a constraint. So in case that you are providing significant change, or not providing, implementing new changes which are then covered by one of the MDCG guidelines that we will discuss next time. How do you define significant changes? If significant changes are then implemented in the product, then you have to completely fulfill the requirement under the MDR. So of course this is a balance, and a lot of manufacturers want to pursue this opportunities for soft transition period, but of course there is also the downside that you're really fixed, but you can buy yourself some time, of course. What I really like about this relatively short guideline is that I think the message is quite clear from the MDCG group, how they interpreted the requirements under the MDR is towards the Class 1 manufacturer, and that even under this additional transition period, that you have to have available a declaration of conformity, and it must be based on a proper technical documentation according to the Annex 7 paragraph 3 of the MDD. And also that the technical documentation and the declaration of conformity should be subject to appropriate measures of documents and record control. And the declaration of conformity should be available at the manufacturer's place and to be able to provide that to the competent authority, because remember, the class 1 manufacturer don't have to have their documentation reviewed by the notified body, but are responsible towards the competent authorities. And you have to have these documents available to show to the competent authorities in case. So let's just check if there are any questions with Vaka. No questions yet. It's a silent day, so that's okay. So I want to jump to then this section of bits and pieces that I promised. So it's related, but also it's different. So what is the actual situation with the notified body in Europe? It's something that really relates to all of us that are working within this medical device field and industry, and of course also gives us some concern on how to, for us as a CRO and consultancy company, we are of course concerned how to manage this for our client. So just to be to make sure that all have the same understanding, so what is basically a notified body? And it is an organization which is has been designated by a member state of the European Union to assess the conformity of certain products before being placed on the European market with the applicable essential technical requirements. And these essential requirements are published either in a directive or a regulation. So this is the top level purpose of the notified bodies. But remember, the notified bodies are private organizations, and they are businesses like any other companies basically, but are designated by the member states. So when planning of the medical device regulation was started up quite many years ago now, we had around 80 of these different companies, notified bodies, support the certification process of medical devices. And then due to multiple issues with the system, it was agreed between the different member states that there needed to be some harmonization between the understanding of what the requirements towards the notified bodies actually were and what the expectations were, what level did they actually have to deliver at. So when this process was started within the European Union, it already at that time decreased the number of the notified body. And then we had different situations. The Brexit actually had quite an impact on the number of notified bodies available, because some of the notified bodies were present in the UK, which are no longer the European Union. So some of these companies either closed down, so they said there will no longer be notified bodies towards the medical devices, and some of them relocated. So we have now around 55 to 56 different notified bodies available under the MDD, so they can provide certificates under the MDD directive. So now under the MDR regulation, about 44 of the different notified bodies have applied, either under the same or different scope. So the notified bodies have to provide documentation for the different medical device codes that we need to be able to certify different products on the European market. And some they choose the whole range, and other notified bodies might have a limited, and it's all linked back to the actually competences and processes that the notified body has available as resources. Of the 44 notified bodies, around 14 notified bodies have been designated under the MDR, And one of the notified bodies are actually both as a medical device and an IVD notified body, so it counts as double here. And there are 3 that are complete or can provide a certification for IVD products. So one of the questions that a lot of the manufacturer is very curious about is if the notified body or another notified body can, during this postponement of the date of application, if they are able to do MDD certificates under this new extended date of application. And there are 2 situations basically. One is that there are notified bodies that have announced that they are no longer going to be, after the May 26, 2020, they will not have the service as being a notified body for medical devices. So these companies of course have the opportunity to go back to the competent authorities and apply for a designation under the MDD. But this is a big burden for these companies, and most of the companies have probably laid off some of the people, or the people have left to work at other notified bodies or other places. And then you have the notified bodies that have been designated under the MDR. They can of course go back and then try to extend with the national bodies or the competent authorities where they're designated under, and ask for an extension of the MDD, being allowed to apply the MDD certificate on products. There are different things that kind of go in and influence this process, because it sounds of course very nice that we have now an extended period where the MDD certificate can be issued. But this new, or the postponement of the date of application actually came out of the COVID-19 crisis, where everything was closed down. There are travel restrictions still, and this situation has a huge impact on the availability of the notified bodies to certify new products. So the MDCG guideline 2020-2 actually was published quite quickly after that the countries kind of closed down, to support the notified bodies in providing support for the certification of COVID-19 related products. But they also stated there that the notified bodies were not allowed for new products, new certification, actually to go out and or they were not allowed to do remote auditing for these products. And this is actually something that has been going on for now a couple of months, and as the travel restrictions are still ongoing, the notified bodies are not allowed, due to these guidelines from the MDCG 2020-4, to go out and have this on-site audit, and therefore kind of stuck. The new products are kind of stuck in the system. I think the message is, of course, it would be nice if there could come out new recommendations from the MDCG or the European Commission, but it doesn't seem like that. They're quite, even though that it would be quite natural to also be doing this on-site audit for new products, making sure that the quality processes are implemented in the production of the new products. But that's how it is, and it means that we will have a delay, and as the travel restrictions are still there, I don't foresee for some months at least that that these on-site audit that we are able to see these from the notified bodies, and therefore no new products on the market. So the postponement of the date of application is mostly of benefit to the companies that already had an application ongoing where there are non-conformities that needs to be clarified, and also if you had different not issues but points from your previous audit that needs to be clarified, this could be closed under this period until the next year. So I think the message is quite clear that the if you are in process of being certified under the MDR, don't let go of that process. Continue following the plan. It's only very few months basically where you have an open window to get the an MDD certificate, and right now it's closed on new products at least, because that the travel restrictions due to COVID-19. So continue what you had planned to do in regards to the MDR. So I think that that was it for today. Do we have any questions, Marka? We don't have any questions today. That is also okay. So I want to thank you all for listening in. It was good fun. I hope you could use the information. And remember, if you missed previous session, the part 1, or you want to revisit this part or share it with friends and colleagues, you will be able to see the entire length here on YouTube. So go ahead and check it out. And we started the book club basically to do something together, so please post questions and comments on the Qmed Academy at qmedconsulting.com email. I will see you all next week, which is the June 12th at 3 p.m. and Merete will be back, so we will go through the MDCG2020-2, and so we will talk through about significant changes and the meaning of that and the implications. So thank you very much for your time. So stay safe and take good care of yourself and others, and see you back another time.